so.
Oh, right, okay. Well, do you want to ask me some questions? Do you want to ask me questions, or do you want me to just...
Would you like to tell me a bit about high-rise? Because, you know, your piece high-rise.
Right, yeah.
Because, just to clarify in my mind a little bit, because I've read the piece again recently.
Right, okay. Rise Up and Build is a piece of work that I did collaboratively for my MA with Tim Fielding, where we looked at a new town. And whilst there are lots of different new towns that have very similar problems, Skelmersdale has problems that other places don't have because of the lack of transport, particularly a rail link to Liverpool, which is where most of the people came from. We'd previously done a piece of work called History of the Future, which was looking at how in the past, as well as currently, there's always been this, is it going to be dystopian, is it going to be utopian?
Okay.
When we started to study Skelmersdale, which has a terrible reputation and is quite regarded as dystopian, and the people who live there always apologise for the place. But we started to look back about how it came to be built, and it was so much more positive than we came across, than when we came across it. The architects were utopian. They employed an artist to do murals and do artwork. It was a place where they brought people from all over the world to come and have a look at this new modernist city that was being built. It was really exciting. But it's kind of like you're bringing two populations together, people from Liverpool that have been moved out from slums and bombed out areas into a much older sort of rural Lancashire community. And even now there's still these massive separations between the two. So it's like having a great idea, as architects tend to do, this wonderful thing. They don't seem to bring people into the equation, and it's the people that sort of make a place. So with Skelmersdale, what we discovered was that, this was the number one problem, the two communities sort of being very separate and there being a lot of animosity between them. Then there was the economic crisis, similar to the one we've got now, which meant that a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of the industry that was there, that was being had grants. The grants were taken away. They left. Unemployment. Loads of people moved back to Liverpool.
Time frame.
This would be 1976.
Okay.
And then there was a period where they called it, it was like a big sale. You could actually put a £5 deposit on a house.
Okay, yeah, they've been doing that in Stoke recently, I believe.
Yeah, again, there are similarities with the other sort of like modernist towns. But Skelmersdale, because it's a socialist place set in amongst a huge sea of conservatism. It's sort of rural Lancashire farming community. It's true blue, and so it was almost like abandoned. It's like, we don't want to have to think about that. So that's what our study brought out, and it was, I think, what we did with the community through the piece of artwork was that we reminded them where it had come from. And about how ideal it was and how actually quite beautiful it is. Yeah. And it's a modernist town, but the modernist buildings haven't been taken down. So it's now somewhere that architects go again to look at an intact modernist place. And I feel that our project, and through work, because we were working in Liverpool at the time and the architects department were really interested, and they're the people who started taking their students out there, that the project actually did have an impact on the place. And very recently I've heard, because I don't go to Skelmersdale very often, although I live very close by, but Tim, who I worked with, does, and he's noticed that a lot of the things that were in disrepair, the benches and the tree planting around the town, it's been tidied up.
Right, okay. So do you think that the project was a catalyst for that?
Absolutely, yeah, because when we went to the Chapel Gallery in Ormskirk to speak about doing an exhibition of work there, because obviously Skem doesn't have a gallery, one of the people who works as a bureaucrat who works for the local authority and feels very strongly about what's happened with Skelmersdale, I think it meant he was able to sort of make a few changes, and prick a few people to actually get something done in Skelmersdale. And it's quite nice to, when I have been back, although I haven't been in a couple of years, not got people apologising for the place anymore.
Yeah.
There's a sense of pride, because one of the things that did happen, although there's no art gallery, we worked very, very closely with the Skem Library and the archivist at the library, and she actually brought some of the models that we'd discovered that were in the museum in Lancashire. She brought them to Skelmersdale, along with some of the paintings from the artist who'd been there, and it was lovely to see people looking at, oh, and that's where my nan moved to, and I think it I would say that although we've not gone back and made any notes about sort of what's changed there, I think just the fact that we were focusing on the place, and I know when we met up with the big group, all the communities come together and have a meeting. When we met up with them originally, they were all sitting with their arms crossed and really sort of very negative. Oh, they're going to do, you know, a humorous piece about, you know, how awful Skelmersdale is. And when they realised that we were taking it much more seriously in a more mature way, they relaxed and were really friendly and encouraging. And it was, you know, it was like sigh of relief. Yeah. We're not just going to take the mickey out of this place.
How was it all organised? How was it kind of facilitated with those different groups?
Well, you could say, I suppose, that, I mean, working collaboratively with Tim had a different idea from what I had, I feel, and we spent quite a bit of time deliberating about, you know, what are we going to do, and I really, he knew some people from this community group, because they'd organised allotments next to where he lives. Right. And I sort of really pushed him to get in touch with them and find out when there was a meeting that we could go down and do a presentation there. Yeah. And he did that. That was in the March. We were finishing the MA in June. Okay. So it was very rapid.
That's quick, isn't it? Yeah.
Although we'd been in Skelmersdale, we'd been taking photographs. Yeah. We'd been debating what we were going to do. But having met that community group, things moved on really rapidly, and they were really keen. Got stuck. Yeah. And they were really keen to work with us, because we weren't, you know, because we weren't just there to take the piss out of the place. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically what we did for the MA. We found some old archive footage from Manchester Film Archive, which they lent us free of charge because we were students. Okay. And Tim did the editing work because he's more technical side than me. So he edited that film and took it down to sort of like 15 minutes rather than half an hour, because I know video can be quite boring unless it's unless it you know, keeps your attention. And the other thing that we did, and again I really pushed for this, that we did some contemporary film in Skelmersdale. Tim was happy to do contemporary film in Skelmersdale, but we just set the camera up, walked away from it, and just did 1 minute takes and see what we got. Yeah. And out of that footage, serendipity took its place. We got an interesting group of shots that, because they were only a minute long, it's not boring. It's quite interesting to just watch, and then it switches onto something else. So there was quite a variety of film, and we showed that alongside the models that we had. So that's what we did for the MA. And then when we came to do the piece of work in Ormskirk, we also used the previous piece, which was History of the Future, which is a big sculptural piece of work that is, most people seem to find fascinating, particularly architects.
Is this the grey piece?
The grey piece, yeah. Okay. We through the artist who'd been employed by Skelmersdale and now lives in Australia, we'd made contact with two of the original architects, one of whom was a female, and that's quite unusual at that time. Yeah. And we went to visit them, and they were quite reticent, again because Skelmersdale had such a bad press. Yeah.
So are they based in this country?
Yeah, they live in Up Holland, which is, you know, just it's right on the edge of Skelmersdale. Yeah. And they actually lived in Skelmersdale for most of their time there, because they felt if they were going to build somewhere for people to live, they should live there themselves. Yeah. So they're really quite sort of honourable people. So we went to see them, and they actually came to see the exhibition in Ormskirk, and I had a really nice email back from the, I can't remember her name now, from the female architects, just saying that, you know, they'd found it absolutely fascinating. And then I discovered through that exhibition, by this time, of course, Tim's looking after his father-in-law because his partner had died, so I was really sort of carrying on with it on my own, which I felt very conscious about because it was a joint piece of work.
Yeah.
But through that exhibition, somebody got in touch with me who is the wife of the model maker.
Oh, right.
So I did actually go and do a video interview with her, which is still sitting on my computer and I've never edited.
So do you think you'll return to that work?
No.
No.
I think if it had continued, there was so much more that we could have done.
Yeah.
But we get on really well and we're really good friends, very different ideas about art. I mean, I'm more serious, although I'm looking at that avocado picture. But in terms of you working with people like that, it's a more serious sort of project.
Okay.
So no, there's lots of frustrations, I think, when you work. It's great and you can get so much more done, but it's also it's a real hard one to, you know, two different characters working.
Yeah.
Unless you've got exactly the same mindset, it can become quite competitive.
Okay.